her arms wrapped around me tight. Too tight for a woman who once called me a placeholder. We were standing in the middle of her daughter's engagement party, and everything looked perfect on the surface. Laughter, champagne, silver trays of hors d'oeuvres passing between polished smiles. But her grip said something different. Then came the whisper, "Leave her before it's too late." I pulled back and laughed, not because it was funny, but because I thought she was joking. Karen, my wife's mother, had never liked me. She was the type who smiled with her mouth and measured you behind her eyes. Her compliments came with qualifiers. Her approval felt like a negotiation. And now, she was hugging me like a widow at a funeral, slipping poison into my ear. I smiled out of reflex, leaned in close, and whispered back, "What did you say?" But Karen just patted my shoulder, turned to greet the next guest, and drifted away like nothing had happened. That's when I felt it, a small weight in my jacket pocket. Subtle, intentional. I reached in, 2 fingers closing around a folded piece of heavy paper. Not a card, not a note, something official, stamped. I didn't look at it then. I waited. I made it through the toasts, through the overlong speeches from Ashley's dad about legacy and young love, through Ashley's champagne smile, rehearsed to perfection as she grabbed the mic and introduced me as the man who saw me before I saw myself. Everyone clapped. Cameras flashed. I raised my glass. But all I could think about was what Karen had whispered and what she'd given me. Back at our condo, Ashley was wired from the party, twirling in her dress like a teenager. I pretended to be tired. She wanted to open gifts. I told her I'd be right back, just needed to change. In the bedroom, I shut the door quietly, pulled off my blazer, and sat down with the folded paper still sealed in my pocket. It was a copy of a property transfer. From Ashley, to a shell company I'd never heard of. Effective date, 6 weeks ago. It was our beach house, the one I paid for. We weren't married yet. No prenup had been signed. And the property, originally under my name, had been gifted to her during a refinancing process I now realized had been more staged than sincere. I sat there, holding the paper like it was a live wire. Then I opened my laptop. 20 minutes later, I found the company listed in a real estate trust tied to someone named Griffin M. Delaney. I didn't know him, but the email address connected to the filing was all too familiar. It was Ashley's, just masked. One of the burner aliases she used for her influencer marketing side gigs. The dots started connecting. A beach house quietly transferred under the radar. A trust registered in Delaware, hard to trace. A new insurance policy taken out last month, listing only her as the beneficiary. And Karen, hugging me, whispering, slipping me the one piece of paper that unraveled everything. It wasn't guilt that made her warn me. It was strategy. I didn't confront Ashley that night. I went back to the living room, smiled, kissed her forehead, and pretended everything was fine. But something had shifted. The next morning, while she was at a brunch meeting, I called my financial advisor, then my lawyer. I needed to know exactly how much of my life she already owned. The answer was worse than I expected. Ashley had access to everything. Joint accounts, credit lines, business proxies I'd set up years ago for tax reasons, but never closed. Over the past 8 months, she'd been moving funds in small, calculated amounts. Not enough to trigger alerts, just enough to prepare an exit. The beach house was just the start. By the end of the week, I had copies of Ashley's communications with someone named Griffin, email threads, app messages, encrypted but decrypted through recovered data. He wasn't a stranger. He was her ex. The same man she said broke her heart in college. The one I watched her cry about 3 years into our relationship when she accidentally found a photo of him online. They weren't just back in touch. They were planning something. A clean break. Financially devastating, legally tight, emotionally manipulative. She'd convinced me to put her on all my accounts after I recovered from surgery last year. "What if something happens to you?" she'd said, brushing hair from my forehead, voice soft with concern. She wasn't worried about losing me. She was positioning herself to take everything once I was gone, or once I no longer mattered. Karen must have seen the documents. Maybe she overheard a conversation. Maybe she realized her daughter was capable of ruining a man completely and decided, selfishly or not, that I wasn't worth destroying. But the why didn't matter now. I had what I needed. For 2 more weeks, I played the perfect fiancée. Dinners, wedding planning, laughs at her Instagram posts, late-night talks about honeymoon destinations. She thought she'd won. She had no idea I'd already moved every major asset into a locked trust under a new LLC registered overseas. No idea that I was preparing a quiet legal trap that would strip her of every dollar she tried to take. No idea that I was going to invite her ex to dinner. Because if Ashley was planning to betray me, I wanted her to do it in public. I wanted everyone to see who she really was. The whisper was a warning, but my silence? That was the setup. Private room, upscale Italian place in Westwood, just discreet enough to avoid attention, but expensive enough to make her feel like it was all part of the fantasy. She thought Griffin was flying in for one night, just to see her. I knew, because I read every message. I watched her dress for him. The red one she hadn't worn in 2 years. The same one she claimed made her feel too obvious. She wore it that night without hesitation. Makeup precise. Earrings subtle but sharp. She kissed my cheek before leaving. "Client dinner," she said. "I might be late." I nodded. "Don't wait up." She didn't ask questions. Why would she? As far as she knew, I was still blind. Still hers. I arrived 10 minutes before she did, through the service entrance. The manager, a former client, owed me a favor. I was seated in the room next door, partitioned by a one-way mirror used for wine tastings. I saw everything. Griffin was already there. Armani blazer. That lazy arrogance of a man who thinks he's landed something valuable. He kissed her cheek. She smiled like a woman rehearsing a lie. They ordered wine. Talked low. I couldn't hear everything, but I didn't need to. I'd already seen the messages. The plan was clear. Griffin was her escape hatch. She'd ride out the wedding, drain the last of the accounts, and vanish to a coastal villa he'd bought under another trust. My trust, actually. One she didn't realize I'd discovered, and emptied. Ashley leaned in, hand over his, voice soft. She was saying something important. He smiled, pulled out a small velvet box. Engagement ring. Not mine. That was my cue. I stood, walked to the front of the restaurant, and told the hostess I'd like to deliver a bottle of champagne to the happy couple in room 4. Compliments of a friend. I waited exactly 2 minutes, then entered. Ashley's face dropped the moment she saw me. Griffin turned, confused. Who the hell? I ignored him. "Congratulations," I said, setting the bottle on the table. "Figured you two had something to celebrate." Ashley's mouth opened, then closed. Her hands curled into fists. "What are you doing here?" I looked at Griffin. "You didn't tell her?" He frowned. "Tell her what?" "That I own the trust that bought your villa in Portugal." Ashley stood. "You're lying." I reached into my coat and pulled out a folder. Slid it onto the table. Inside, documents. Bank transfers. Emails. Legal filings. All signed. All traced. Griffin's face paled as he flipped through. Ashley grabbed the folder. "Where did you? How did you?" "You made it too easy," I said. "You used my money. My accounts. My legal team, actually. You just didn't know I still had them on retainer." Griffin looked at her. "You said this was clean." She didn't answer. I turned to him. "You've got about 24 hours before those documents reach the IRS and your embassy. I'd suggest a lawyer." He stood, fast. "I didn't sign anything." "No," I said. "But you slept with the beneficiary. That's enough." Griffin bolted. Ashley stood frozen. I could see the calculation in her eyes. Anger. Shame. Panic. But mostly, exposure. "You set me up," she said. "No," I replied. "You set yourself up. I just handed you the mirror." She moved to slap me. Again, just like her mother's birthday years ago, but I caught her wrist midair. "Don't," I said coldly. "Not again." She pulled away, shaking. "You ruined everything." "No. I protected everything. The house. Sold. The accounts. Emptied. The business account you tried to open under my LLC. Flagged and frozen. You're not just broke. You're exposed." She stumbled back into her chair. I dropped the final envelope on the table. "Divorce papers. Signed. You can keep the dress. And the memories." She didn't speak. Couldn't. As I left the restaurant, I passed Karen waiting by the valet. She looked at me, not with apology, not even approval. Just a nod. Like a soldier acknowledging a move executed cleanly. "You saw it coming," I said. "I did," she replied. "I just didn't know if you'd be smart enough to do something about it." The valet brought my car around. Before I got in, I looked back. Ashley was still inside, slumped over the table, alone. And the ring? Still in the box. The fallout was faster than I anticipated. 2 days after the dinner, Ashley tried damage control. She posted a curated photo from a previous trip, sunset, cocktails, a caption about self-love and growth. It got the usual sympathy likes. Her followers had no idea she was living in a rented Airbnb now, paid for with the last of her personal credit. Griffin? He ghosted, deleted his socials, disconnected his number, vanished from every platform within 48 hours. I'd sent a tip to his employer about potential tax evasion involving offshore real estate. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. The audit would do the rest. Ashley's lawyer called mine 3 times that week, begging, bargaining. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The prenup was ironclad. Her financial moves, now public, breached multiple clauses. The wedding was off. The engagement ring, a $14,000 antique she insisted we custom design, was already liquidated through a silent auction. Proceeds went to the legal fees I never told her I'd prepaid. And the beach house? Sold to a private buyer through the shell company I created. Clean title. Full cash. I wasn't angry. I was clean. Cold. Everything she touched, I'd already sterilized. She tried to spin a narrative. He was controlling. He changed. He manipulated the finances. But people who live off image don't survive public contradiction. The receipts were too loud. The timeline too perfect. I didn't need to speak. The documents did the talking. Karen, surprisingly, stayed silent. She didn't defend her daughter. Didn't blame me. Maybe she knew. Maybe she'd been through something similar once and saw the cycle repeating. Either way, I never heard from her again after that night. 3 weeks later, I was in Spain. Not hiding, relocating. New apartment, new bank, new silence. I started a boutique advisory firm in Madrid. Small team. High net worth clients. People who liked precision and discretion. The kind who understood what it meant to play a long game. Occasionally, I get updates. Ashley's Instagram slowly lost traction. The partnerships dried up. Brand deals stopped coming. Comments shifted from flattery to questions. Where's the fiancé? What happened to the house? She disabled the account 2 months later. I never checked again. Some people think revenge is about noise, about explosions, confrontations, chaos. They're wrong. Real revenge is quiet, legal, surgical. It's not about taking someone down in public. It's about making sure when they fall, there's no one left to catch them. Ashley once said I was too passive, too trusting, that I didn't fight for things. She was right about one thing. I didn't fight. I waited. And when it was time, I didn't swing wild. I cut precisely. Now I live on my terms. No echoes of her voice in my home. No shadows of what almost happened. Just quiet mornings, espresso on the balcony, and a spreadsheet of people who almost got away with it. People like her. She thought I'd never see it coming. She forgot. Some of us don't shout when betrayed. We just start planning.